Welcome, everyone. Today is Tuesday, April 22nd, 2025 at 6:31 p.m. This is the Finance Committee meeting, and I'd like to call the meeting to order with a Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20F, this meeting is being recorded. On March 28th, 2025, Governor Healey signed into law a bill which extends the temporary provisions pertaining to the open meeting law to June 30th, 2027. Specifically, this further extension allows public bodies to continue holding meetings remotely without a quorum of public body physically present at a meeting location and to provide adequate alternative access to remote meetings. The language does not make any substantive changes to the open meeting law other than extending the expiration date of the temporary provisions regarding remote meetings from March 31st, 2025 to June 30th, 2027. Well, hello, everyone.
Hello.
Well, hello. So I'm going to do a roll call to let everyone on the members know who are here. So we have Hugh Morton, Al Lees, Duncan Law, Gary Carrero, Cindy Brown, Christopher Thrasher, and myself, Karen Rouse. At the present time, we are missing just one member, Zach LeBrew. I don't see him here. Okay. So our first item on the agenda was to have is to have a discussion introduction with our new town moderator, but I do not see. Oh, Kurt just joined and Zach just joined. So Zach LeBrew is here. And
Hello, everyone. Hello.
Hi, good evening.
Hi, Zach.
Good evening.
Hi, Kurt, Mr. Hayes. Hello.
Yes, you can call me Kurt.
All right, Kurt, we sure will. So our first item on the agenda is to welcome our new town moderator, and maybe you can introduce yourself, and we'll be happy to introduce ourselves and talk a little bit about
Wonderful.
town meeting in 2 weeks.
Yes, I'm Kurt Hayes. I'm an attorney. I've been practicing law in Rhode Island and Massachusetts for about 38 years. I have 5 children. They're all grown from 47 to 20. We moved to Westport in we purchased the house in 2011, moved here in 2013. We have a lot of family relatives that live in the community. My wife's sisters. I was the parliamentarian and chief legal counsel for the Providence Community Action Program. I've been a parliamentarian and legal counsel to a number of nonprofits. Currently, I represent, I think, 3 or 4 nonprofits. So I am accustomed to conducting meetings and acting in that capacity as a parliamentarian. And I thought what I would do is, I know I have to appoint members to the Finance Committee, which is part of my role. So I'm going to appoint myself and resign as the moderator. No, I'm just kidding. So, anyhow, that's who I am. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. So did you, we only exchanged emails, so we haven't spoken. So did you meet with the town administrator today?
I did. I met with Jim Hartnett. What a great guy. He actually knows my brother and sister-in-law, Frank and Cindy Rosa, well. So, yeah.
Yeah. So it's interesting how the elections go because you just jump right into town meeting. So are you ready?
No one was more surprised than me.
Well,
but no, I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be fun, and I hope I do a good job and live up to your standards. That's my goal, not to make a mess of things.
Well, we're all here to support you. So thank you for taking the job that didn't seem to be too high in demand, but thank you for doing it. We greatly appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
So what normally happens is the Finance Committee does a very brief presentation, and I can talk to you offline too on when you'd like us to do it. Typically, Steve opens up the meeting and then gives the floor to the finance committee. We do a very brief budget presentation, and then the articles start.
So I
and
think we stick with Steve's formula. I mean, I did meet
Okay.
with Steve also, and he exchanged some
Okay,
emails
great.
with some really useful information, and he certainly knew what he was doing. So
Yeah.
I think he set a good example.
Okay, so once we get the PowerPoint finalized, I'll send that off to you. Steve had always asked for it kind of a week before the meeting, so this way he had a chance to get it in his grander PowerPoint presentation of everything
Yes.
else that you've got there, so. Okay, so we can
Excellent, thank
certainly
you.
do that. And just, by the way, we have, as you know, you appoint finance committee members, so we currently have 8 members, so we have 1 open seat. So that's, to your discretion, whenever you can find a candidate for the finance committee, that would be helpful to get that seat filled.
Okay, yes, I will.
And then there's two terms that so there's 3 terms every year. So there's 2 members that would either renew or so you'd have to touch base with those members.
Okay,
But we get time, so those are for July 1st. So nothing urgent, but the sooner we fill the seat for July is helpful to us before we get busy into the
I would
season.
think.
Yeah, we're kind of in the wind down mode now, so which is helpful. Anything else? Anyone want to ask any questions of Kurt while he's here?
No, just welcome to the gang.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I hit Mr. Law. You're an attorney, aren't you?
Pardon me?
Mr. Thrasher is, and
Yeah.
Mr. Morton is.
Oh, okay. I thought I read. I had a professor in law school. His name was Duncan.
And was
Oh,
his last
and-
name Law?
No, not law. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Morton and Mr. Thrasher are both attorneys.
Oh, okay. So they feel my pain. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I just got the warrant today, and I've been going through it. So it's
Have you had, my question, this is Cindy Brown speaking. Have you had the opportunity since you've resided here in Westport to attend the town meeting?
I've been to 4 town meetings.
Oh,
Yes,
okay, good. Oh, good.
and yeah, it was
So,
fun.
Good, good.
Yeah, I just never had that
You're a
experience.
sick
before. I
human
lived in,
being.
Attleboro. Yeah, I understand not everyone shares that sentiment.
Right,
But
right.
Jim had told me that back in the 90s, sometimes town meeting would go 3 or 4 days.
Oh, yeah, even
No,
yeah,
this
back in the 70s, even sure, even before
No
that. Yeah,
kidding.
it would go on and on. So, yeah, there's no question that Steve ran a very tight ship, and
Yeah.
he didn't mind it going until 11 or a little bit past if it was going to be done in one night.
Right,
So,
right.
and it's keeping people there. That's always the hardest part, right? Is keeping people interested enough to stay for the duration, because the
True.
articles at the end are just as important as those in the beginning, and it's always
Yeah.
hard, as you know, to keep people there. So
But as Cindy was probably indicating, when you have late in the day, the audience may end up being the finance committee and the selectmen.
right, that's
Yeah.
about it.
Right, okay. So, any other questions? I'm happy to answer, or,
Nope.
okay.
No, I think it was great to put a name to the face, so we're not
Yes.
Oh,
meeting
likewise.
for the
Yeah.
first time in 2 weeks. So I'll be in touch with you about the presentation, and then
Okay.
I haven't seen the final warrant with the motions printed in them. Did Jim give you a copy
I
of that
have
to
them,
you?
I actually have them right here.
Oh, okay. We'll have to get that
Yeah.
soon.
Okay,
We can have because as you know, you always call to the chair and I read the motions as
Yes.
on most of them. So that would be great. Okay.
Karen,
okay.
Did you have in
Now,
mind?
Karen, is that my responsibility to get this to you?
No, I'll ask Jim for it.
Oh,
So
all
I'll
right,
get
'cause-
I'll get it from Jim.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, and we'll circulate it.
Did you have in mind introducing the members of the committee, or they just stand in our faces.
We can go around again. We had just gone around saying who was here. We can go around again.
Yes, so
Al?
everyone can introduce yourself, so that's perfect.
Well, I already had raised
Oh,
something, so
you did.
I'm
right.
Cindy Brown,
Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
same here.
And I'm Hugh Morton. As mentioned, I'm a former probate lawyer with a fair amount of probate litigation.
Oh, okay. That's
they-
a lot of what I do.
Now, did you ever know Budgie Barron? He was on the committee. He was a law professor. And I don't ever crossed tracks.
The name doesn't strike a bell.
He was a law professor at Boston College.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. My brother went to BC.
Al Lees, I'm a recovering grocer.
Well, thank you for all of your years of eating I've done.
I'm Christopher Thrasher. I'm an attorney. I specialize in mostly election law, actually, and some criminal defense as well. I'm also on the school committee.
Oh, that's good. Very good. Nice to meet you, Chris.
Chris, you're gonna
Christopher,
have
could
to
I
turn
just
up your
suggest
volume.
that you could turn the volume up just a tiny bit?
There we go. Yeah. Try to
That's
keep
a
the-
little better.
keep the mic
All right,
a
that's
little closer
that's better.
across.
There you
Thank
go.
you.
There you go,
Yeah.
a little bit better.
All right.
All right, Zach. Oh,
Hi, Kurt. I'm Zach LeBrew, and I'm a project manager for General Contractor.
Nice to meet you, Zach.
Nice to meet you, Kurt.
so we have Gary here. He's
Yes.
it says name not
All right, so-
available. That's Gary.
Oh, yeah, it's
Okay.
the you because I'm on another meeting at
Oh.
work. So my name is Gary Carrera. I've been on the committee for a little bit over 12 years. I'm the chief financial officer for the town of Dartmouth, and also
Oh, okay.
the current interim town administrator for the town of Dartmouth.
All right. Hey, it's nice to meet you.
Nice meeting you.
And we have Duncan Law, which you met.
There
his-
you go.
Yes.
I know he's been having some audio trouble.
Yeah, I couldn't hear him earlier. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we still can't hear him.
No,
Yeah, Duncan's got to get a new microphone.
yeah, something.
I think my
All right,
wife
well-
wishes she could shut my microphone off occasionally.
Yeah. He's not on mute, so his discussions will show up in the chat.
Okay.
Right.
All right. Well,
Well,
I think that's
appreciate your
everybody.
time. Great
Yeah,
to meet
likewise.
you. We'll touch base soon. All right.
All
Thank
right,
you, Kurt.
guys. Take
All right.
care.
Thank you, Kurt.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. All right. And I think Nicole mentioned in the chat, she said the motions are on the website. So it looks like
Oh,
there's
good.
so we can grab it from there. As well, the general public can see it. Didn't know it was there, but thank you, Nicole. Okay, so the second item on the agenda tonight is a discussion of to get an update from the school, from Evan Gendro, who's here with us, to give us an update on the school budget. So we all know the budget constraints in the 54% split that the town has generated leaves a significant gap to the school as well as many other departments. But I wanted to get an update from the school committee on where you're standing with the budget. What cuts have you, or what have you done successfully, and where do you stand with the budget now?
Thank you, Madam
Okay.
Chair, and thank you to the committee for inviting me tonight to speak and give an update. I also wanted to thank Jim Hartnett and other members of the Finance Committee that I've had the opportunity to speak with over the last few months as we've gone through the not easy process of developing a budget and adjusting to different estimate. And as aid numbers come in, particularly Ms. Brown and Duncan Law as well, as we've had those discussions. But I just wanted to give an update as now the vice chair of the school committee and where we're at. I wanted to I'll preface this with obviously nothing is concrete yet. We're still waiting on a number of things, and this the school committee itself hasn't voted on any changes, but this is what the thinking is going into based on where we're at with both the finance committee's recommendation and work that I asked our business office to do as well in an effort to sort of close the gap in our recommended figures. So we started with, I'll just go down, I guess, starting from our recommended budget to kind of where we're at right now. So we started with our recommended budget from the school committee of just over $24,040,000. And we presented that to the finance committee earlier this year in our presentation, but also happy to discuss that again if anyone had questions. After the select board's recommended figure came out, and we were roughly 500,000 just under there apart, and following the finance committee's recommendation of the 23,254,000, adding in the 400,000 free cash gets us to just over 23,654,000, which leaves us at a difference of $385,000 roughly. So I then asked our business office, who works very diligently in concert with the school committee on our budget every year, to take a look at especially the larger items that were included in our recommended budget, to see what could be done there outside of cutting from our contractual obligations. What adjustments could be made that would close the gap. So I will note that obviously it's not ideal because the committee recommended that figure because we felt that that's what needed to be included in the budget. But what I will say is, obviously we all know the difficult realities of living in a town like Westport that receives little state aid, not just on the town side, but also with Chapter 70 and other formulas that leave Westport out. So after talking with our business department, who then worked with our other departments to find ways to get that closer. So if we look at the two largest items that were included in our recommended budget, they were a sub-separate classroom at the Macomber School and a therapeutic classroom. So those costs between those two lines were just over $300,000 from our recommended budget. Actually, it was $301,000 from our recommended budget. So the thought of including those in our recommendation was that there was, identified students as potentially benefiting from those programs and possibly preventing future out-of-district placements, which end up costing the district money, as everyone's aware. That is, that's based on the assumptions and the projections of our staff. But if we held off on those two line items, that would reflect an adjustment of just over $300,000 in our budget. I'll just note that the risk that we run by doing that is if those students, particularly the ones that are identified in early intervention at the Macomber School, if those end up coming with placements, that could create a cost. But assuming that doesn't happen and we reduce these lines, we're looking at a difference instead of $385,000 of just over $80,000 difference in budgets. So that's if we don't include those two items in our budget. That's roughly where we stand
Right.
now. So I felt that the finance committee would, appreciate that update on our end. And, obviously it's not an ideal situation, but would certainly appreciate any thoughts, feedback, what the feeling of the committee is on opportunities where we may be able to close that gap would certainly be appreciated. So thank you.
Thank you. And, I chatted with Evan, I was trying to put together the presentation that, that the finance committee does. And I feel I couldn't even say if the school was planning on layoffs or have any idea how you were trying to close that gap and really where you stood. And I think it's helpful so we all understand, what you're trying to do to get that down. And I was encouraged to hear that there wouldn't be, teacher layoffs and everything, that you're trying to find creative ways to to bridge that gap. But, so that's what prompted the conversation here today. I think it's helpful that we all have an update on what's happening with the school. So go ahead, Al, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, yes, this is more information, Evan. Of the total budget, how much is contractual or obligatory based on, whether it's state statute or whatever, feds or whatever, and how much is discretionary? 80-20, 90-10, 70-30, just a ballpark number.
So, well, I don't have a ballpark off the top of my head. What I can tell you is that a lot of especially our larger increases are not discretionary. So those are, whether that's, if it's special education related, right? Those placements, we can't do anything about those. That's a significant cost of the district.
Right.
That's probably I would put that in the second largest category. The first is our contractual from collective bargaining and transportation. So
Okay.
that we can't control those. That's based unless we cut staff.
Mhm.
Most of our budget is salaried. So that's subject to collective bargaining. The same with our transportation. That's subject to the contractual agreements we have with Amarels and others that we work with. So, but I would say particularly on the special education front, it's higher cost category. The same is true for, where you're required to provide transportation up to a certain grade. There are obviously some discretionary things that we include, like we don't have to include the athletics that we do or but that's obviously important to running a school district and
Right.
But I will say a lot of it, while I would refrain from a percentage, what I would say is a lot of it is non-discretionary.
It's locked in. Yeah, a good percentage is locked in. It is. Yeah. Okay.
And I would say just adding to that, one other piece is with classroom ratios, which is important because I can tell you, especially on the special education side, if we get a certain number of students that are identified as requiring services that we can't provide outside of a certain class ratio. So say the capacity for a certain sub-separate or other program is 7 students and we get another placement, that is now instead of just including them in that room, if that's the capacity that we're required to have, we would then have to pay for an out-of-district placement on that.
Gotcha.
So that's
Okay.
in addition to just the placements, there's questions about capacity, and so there are a lot of things that play into that. But I appreciate
Okay.
that.
That's fine. Yeah. Thanks for the info.
Thanks, Al. Gary, you're next if you're
Yes.
available. Okay.
Yes. So, does the amount that was rejiggered here include the free cash allocation that was originally presented, whatever amount that was? This is net of all that, right? The 301,000?
Correct. So when I took the original difference, that's not from the base. The base budget was 23,254. So the difference is after adding in the 400,000 in free cash that was recommended by I believe both the finance committee and the select board. So after adding that in, the original difference was taken from the school committee's recommended budget with the finance committee's recommended budget.
Okay. So, I wouldn't want the public to think the impression is, well, they're going back and looking for 301,000, they can cut another 200,000. I don't think that's the case here. We still had a remaining amount of free cash. Have they looked at busing? I think last year the school department looked at combining some routes, trying to be a little bit more efficient in the transportation of students. Has that been looked at in this budget cycle?
To my knowledge, it has, and I can tell you that. So our business manager works very diligently on our bus routes with Amarels. So they, I know that they're constantly assessing routes, particularly as it gets closer to the new school year, to see if there are opportunities for that. What I can say is that the difficult part about busing in Westport is that the students can't be on the bus for longer than a certain amount of time. So when you have those longer routes that go into, especially if it's further in the southern part of town or other places, it can be difficult to stay within those time constraints. So that's really what's prevented more consolidation. But I know that our business department works diligently to make sure that it's efficient.
Yeah, I think it's more than an hour. They can't be on the bus for more than an hour.
Correct. Yep. Correct.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gary. Christopher, you've got your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I was just going to add a little bit of context for Mr. Lees's question. I know that on the original amount that the school committee requested, I believe it worked out to like it was either 6.3 or 6.4% increase, and it was 4.5% of that was all contractual obligations. So whether including the additional union, the union renegotiations, and then also the transportation contracts. So it's represents a more of that now with the amount that the number is at right now. But that's where it was at the original for the original ask from the school committee.
Thank you. So I know, I just want to throw this out there. So, I know we voted in March and made the recommendations for the budget, and that is what's printed in the warrant, and that is what is already on the website, and that will go. I just want to give ourselves just a little thought and consideration if we wanted to approach that gap a little bit and revisit the budget. So I just want to throw it out there as an option for everyone. So in the free cash that the town had and that was allocated to all the warrants, when we wrapped up the last three articles, which was 32, 33, and 34, which was the stabilization fund, the capital stabilization fund, and then the special education fund, there's about 82,000 left in free cash that isn't allocated anywhere. And so I just want to give some consideration if that's something that we could consider helping fund the school a little more for a little more free cash. And just to remind, the budget in last fiscal year used 652,000 in free cash. So while I think it's incredible that we're down to 400,000 in free cash and we're moving in the right direction, I'm just a little fearful if we move too much too fast and we're a little overexposed. As you know, I'm not a fan of using free cash in the operating budget, but there is some available that we can consider helping the school out in their last bit. So I just wanted to open that to discussion. It's an option. It's a hard one all around, right? Because we've got to come with some way. And the goal of the 5-year plan was to try to reduce it 100,000 each year and kind of bring it down. And so I know last year we went above, and so so this is a $252,000 difference, which is drastic. But so I just want to throw out an option for everyone.
Yeah, Karen, I agree. I think that was one of the questions I was going to ask is what we had available in free cash. We asked the school department to go back and look at costing, going back and look at the budget, trying to scrub the budget a little bit. They did. They found $300,000 worth of that. As I've spoken in the past, I'm not as you are, just not, in favor of using free cash, but I like the trend. It's going downward. And I think that if anything, it's headed in the right direction, and maybe the schools now are looking at their budgets a little bit more closely and trying to use more efficiency in their budgets that they haven't before. But I think maybe now to meet them in the middle or to close the gap, I think that it'd be the right thing to do, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Madam Chair, if I may, I just wanted to
yes,
quickly
sure thing.
comment. I just wanted to know, I share the goal also of reducing the free cash allocation going forward. So that's one of the many reasons, took a closer look at this budget and asked our business department to do that as well, was to help get us as close as we can without starting to reduce services for the district. So certainly share that goal. Just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
Thank you. So we've got a lineup of hands. So I'll go ahead, Zach, you next.
So I guess this question would be for Evan and the school committee. In a hypothetical situation, if, you know, the budget recommendation stands as is, has the school committee put any thought into the 80 to 84 roughly K deficit right now with the 301,000 reduction for a discretionary cut? Like, if you didn't have that, the additional free cash, is there another, you know, what would be your next priority for a discretionary item that you guys would have to cut? Have you put any thought into that?
I mean, not at the committee level. The committee hasn't met to discuss what to cut in that scenario. And I don't want to speak for the committee without the committee having voted on potential cuts. I mean, what I would say is when you're looking at, you know, town meeting, you know, is where the dollars and cents are approved. But what I would say is with that figure, when you're dealing with a number in the, you know, almost 100,000, we're looking at probably, you know, salaries make up the most of our budget. I would not want that to happen, but whether it's that or whether it's reducing a program, I know last year we cut the summer school program, which cost the district, I think it was, I want to say around $30,000-ish, somewhere in that range in the last fiscal year. So it would be likely something along those lines. We'd have to sharpen our pencils and look through the budget to see what my goal is going into cuts. And this was the same case in the last fiscal year as it is now, is we want to be in a position where we have the least impact on students. So we would, you know, my goal would be to sharpen in the committee to sharpen our pencils and look where that would be the case. You know, we'd have to, you know, every department in town's in the same boat with where we're at with our budgets and being tight. So we'd have to really take a close look at that to see where would be best without impacting students. But I wouldn't feel comfortable at this point specifying certain areas just because the committee hasn't had a chance to come to consensus on that.
Yeah, no, I totally understand. And I don't,
my horizon. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
and I don't ask that question, you know, to look at other things to cut, but more so, I think it's important at town meeting that when we vote on this, if we did recommend, you know, this $80,000 of the free cash that we have left to go towards that the voters and the taxpayers understand the repercussions if we didn't, you know, put this free cash towards that. So I was just trying to understand kind of the bigger picture and worst case scenario, I guess, if you will.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. And I know in the past discussions have been had on, you know, what it would look like to reduce kindergarten and preschool services, right? That's not those are, you know, I think it's important that we provide it and it's a needed service, but those are, when you look at discretionary, right? Those are things that we're not required to do at least at a full-time basis. So I know that was a part of the discussion in the past. I'm not sure what the appetite would be, you know, to look at that, but that's certainly, you know, when we talk about discretionary, that's where those dollars, you know, would be found, unfortunately, right? Which is very unfortunate because I think that's an important service, but
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Zach. Al, you've got your hand up.
Yes, thanks, Karen. I just had a quick question for the finance committee and obviously for Evan. Can we split it down the middle? What would 40 grand do? Rather than 80,000 or nothing, what would 40,000 do? I'm just asking, will it preserve certain services? Will it be additive in certain areas, but still allow for free cash, whatever's left is to go somewhere else? for the other 40. That's all I'm asking.
What I would say, it would still mean about 40,000 in cuts. But
Yep.
But if that's what town meeting decides, then that's what the district has to live with. So, I mean, yeah, if that's the will of the voters, then, you know, we'll obviously make it work. But that would just result in about 40,000 of cuts on from the district. Thank you.
No, and I just want to say as a follow-up, and then I'll be quiet. I think we all sympathize with the situation. There's no negativity here whatsoever, but we also look at the other side of, the equation, whether it is cemetery, highway, you pick the thing, and the schools are dealing with, as we know, so I won't belabor the point, tons of unfunded mandates, tons of things, tons of blah, blah, blah. And we get it. We get it completely. And we're trying to come to an accommodation. This is not a negative against the school department. Maybe a few years ago it was, but now it's not, and so I just wanted to toss that out on the table to see whether or not, you could get some of what you're looking for in the 80, but maybe not quite as much. So the other, 40 or whatever the math is, could also help other areas of the town. That was my only reason for the question.
No, and I appreciate the point. What I would say too is that why I feel that this is relatively conservative is because the uncertainty that we're facing with not only with state aid, but also some of the title money that we receive. There's a lot of that's sort of up in the air at the moment. Not sure to what extent that'll impact our district. So there is still some uncertainty. So this is operating on assumption that we're receiving the aid that we've expected in the past.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So that's another factor, as to your point about both unfunded mandates and the uncertainty of aid figures. But this is operating on the assumption that we should expect the money that we've received, which may not be the case. It may be the case, but there's certainly it's a consideration.
Okay. Thanks.
Great, thanks. Cindy, you're next.
So I've got a couple of points to make and then a couple of questions. You certainly, the Westport Community Schools are certainly not alone in having to deal with austerity in local budgets. Okay, you can pick up any local newspaper from the Providence area, the Boston area, wherever, Connecticut, Rhode Island, New Hampshire. Many school districts are facing these same issues. And I might say to a much larger degree. I mean, they're looking at significant cuts. Much of that has to do with declining population, which I know we're not facing here. Your enrollment is growing, so it's a little bit different story. But it certainly is a very common theme that's present now. I guess, so one of the questions I have regarding some of your title teachers, and that is, those teachers are there under contract only to the extent that funding is available. Is that correct? So your Title I, or is it Title II, the reading program, the teachers that are employed using those title funds, their contracts are subject to receiving that funding. Is that correct?
I would have to get back to you on if that's subject.
Okay.
Yeah, I would have to follow up on that. But what I can say is that because that funding has been at a predictable rate, that is part of our budget.
Yeah.
So whether it funds their salaries or whatever it may be, that is part of our budget, because it's not a, in other words, it's not a like competitive type funding, right? As you know, so that
Right.
has been part of our budget because of the predictability of it.
Okay, right, okay. But if that funding were to go away, does that program go away?
It may. I can certainly tell you that with the dollar figures that large, I mean, there was talk about, I know Superintendent Aubin shared at a recent meeting that the School Superintendents Association shared. You can expect I don't know if it might have been a quarter of a cut in title funding, which, for Westport, for some of the funding that we receive could be as high as $100,000. It could be,
Right.
who's saying what that could be. But when you're talking
Right.
about numbers that large, you are talking
Okay.
programmatic cuts. If that's with reading programs, if that's,
Right.
it'll be staff. That's a significant cut to a district of our size.
Okay. Okay, so then moving on, so if the finance committee were to recommend that we increase funding, and I'll just go to the extreme. I'm certainly not speaking for the rest of the committee, but if we were to say we would go with the 80,000 that we have remaining in free cash, somewhere in that figure, $80,000, and we would then, and Karen, correct me if I'm wrong, we would have to make an amended motion at town meeting, because right now the budget is printed with the number we have, with the number that we last voted on. So we, the finance committee, could amend our motion on the floor at town meeting to increase that number if we as a committee voted to do so by whatever amount, if we choose to do so, prior to the vote. So that would be an amended motion on the floor. I guess what I would personally like to know, and I'll tell you, I asked this question about 3 or 4 years ago, and a former chair bit my head off when I asked the question, but I'm going to ask it again. If we were to propose such a number and have an amended number that would include an additional, I'm going to call it $75,000, $80,000, whatever that number is, added to your budget, would the school committee be satisfied with that number and not volley for additional funding above and beyond that?
I would not.
Would you as a school, and I know you can't speak for the committee,
Yeah.
but would you say that your committee, you could even go back to your committee and take a vote that you as a committee would not propose such an additional amount on town floor if we were to provide the additional 80,000?
What I can
There's
say
nothing
is,
worse than us going to town meeting
Right.
and bickering over a small amount of money in a $52 million budget, okay? It's silly for us to go and fight over $80,000. So either if we as a committee agree to it, will you as a committee accept it and say, okay, we're pretty much where we thought we were. We know it's not the big number. We don't have the big number. So let's just take this big number off the table, because above this $80,000, you have to name what department you want to take the money from. So if you want more, if it did come to where we agreed to more and you wanted more than that, then you would have to stand up and say you want an additional 200, 300, 100, and where it's going to come from. Is it going to come from the police department? Are you going to shave off a police department that's already providing two security, school resource officers to you? Are you going to take $100,000 out of the fire department, who's just managed to get themselves to a full staff? Are you going to take $100,000 out of the library that only gets a few $100,000 to begin with? I mean, I don't know where $100,000 would magically appear from. So I guess my point is that if we as a committee decide to provide an additional 80,000 in free cash, that's it. There's no more money that we have sticking anywhere else. If we have some additional funding in free cash that we're trying to save, it's because this town finally has the ability to structurally put together some savings for a rainy day in the future. If we had a special town meeting in the fall, we need to have money to be able to deal with such things. So I guess my message, me personally, because this is not coming from any other committee member but myself, is that if we were to go forward with that, I would like to think that you as a committee would at least understand that we work for the entire town, and most of the people that in the children in your school district live in the entire town. I don't think you want them to lack police or fire services or have bumpy roads or roads that don't get plowed in the winter, to the extent we still get snow. But, I think you want a town that has services. And that's where it's going to come from if you don't.
Yes.
So that's
And,
kind of my jack.
right.
I think he's going to let you answer the question now.
Okay, sorry.
Yes, no, and I wouldn't want to give the impression that that's the sentiment that I have, that, we should be without other services. But what I will say is, I would be comfortable with a budget that supports that free cash allocation, if the committee were to support it. I would be comfortable with that figure. I've also, I feel that our business department would be comfortable with it. And I wouldn't support, I wouldn't foresee additional amendments on the budget if there was an effort made to meet us. That's why I'm here today, is to explain the gap and see how we can make it up, because I feel like we're very close, and we've both worked. I know the town, Jim and Karen and the finance committee and the select board have worked very hard to, whether it's on, the receipt estimates or other areas, to try to get us closer, and the revenue, and I'm trying to do the same on the school side as
Right,
well.
right.
That's why I'm here today, is to
Good.
say this is the number we're apart after we sharpened our pencils and took another look at it, and how can we get there? So I can say that I would be comfortable with a budget that supports making up that gap.
Thank you.
Am I up next?
Yes, and just before you go, Hugh, I just wanted to clarify Cindy's point that I believe that's correct. So the motion that right now is printed in the warrant, that's ordinarily what the finance committee would read. We would let Mr. Hayes know that we're going to be amending it, and we would read something that's different than he's going to project on the screen if we took a vote to that. So finance committee would change the motion on the floor.
And we've done that in the past. I mean, it's
Yes.
a little complicated, but not unknown. But I want to take Cindy's point one point further. And I know that you can't speak for the committee at this point, but I think it is more than a thought that. I think that before being agreeable with that approach, I would want a commitment from the school committee that this is it, that there would be no second thoughts about it on town meeting floor. You can't give that commitment. I'm not asking because you're not the committee, but the committee can. And that would reassure me, and the point that Cindy was making, that's it. Second point, which is not the same area, you supply basically nursery school and kindergarten or and part of the schools. I think that townspeople pay for those. I'm not sure. I believe they pay, right?
There is particular, yep. They do pay tuition for our preschool program. Yep.
Have you compared the payments that you charge for tuition for their programs with other freestanding childcare, et cetera, around town?
I don't have those numbers tonight. I can certainly follow up with the committee on that.
How do they compare? If they're under the market, then it would seem to me there's no reason they shouldn't match what others are charging. I'm not suggesting that you try to push them up as high as possible, but simply they should not be under market. If that were the case, I can make up a number, but I won't, because it could be anything. That is at least a possible source of some revenue that may not have been looked at.
Right. Yeah, I appreciate the point. Yeah, I would have to get back to you on the comparison.
Well,
But
going to get back
I
to part
appreciate
of the further discussion you're having, right?
Right. I know that's how our out of school time program operates as well. It takes in, we take in a certain amount that's charged to parents for the care after school, and that operates in a revolving account that covers its expenses. So that's kind of how that program works as
The
well.
thing is, your bookkeeping may be different than outside, but the charge to the parents should be comparable. We're not out to rake them over the coals, but I think it should not be a bargain necessarily against other providers. But it may turn out it's a non-issue, I understand, but worth a look, I think.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hugh. Gary, do you have a hand back up?
Yes, I just had a quick question. I don't know if anybody has this number, or maybe Nicole has it if she's on board online. Does anybody know how much we collect in school choice every year, average?
It was on the cherry sheet, the most recent cherry sheet I know. The school choice gets washed through there. I don't recall what it is, but I know it shows up on the cherry sheet.
So, okay, well, I don't know. Okay, so maybe we can get that number, but so the question is school choice used as part of the operations of the operational budget?
So,
Nicole's got a hand up. Maybe Nicole can answer.
Go ahead, Nicole.
School choice is a revolving account for the school. And currently the balance in the school choice account, which I don't know if that's everything from this year because I don't have the full numbers,
yeah.
but the balance right now is 122,500. Yes.
So okay, so is
I don't
that
know if
money-
all of that came in this year.
Okay.
But it
All
comes
right,
right
so-
from the cherry sheet every month.
Yeah.
So yeah, anybody who wants to go online to the cherry sheet it'll show what our projected amount should be for fiscal 25.
Okay, so I guess the question is to the schools: do they use that as part of the operational budget?
It's not. It's a revolving account.
So
it's not
ju-
general fund revenue. It is completely separate.
So it's only used for the program itself. It cannot be used for the general fund budget,
Correct.
operating budget. Okay.
Correct.
Is that the way it's always been set up?
As long as I've been here.
Okay. That's interesting. Some communities that don't have it set up as a revolving fund. So maybe something that the schools want to look at. Because if you got a pot of money sitting there and it can only be used for that particular program, how much are we spending how much are we spending in effect on that program? I guess that's the question, I mean, 100,000 is 100,000. It's a lot of money, especially now, like we're talking $80,000. If it can be used as part of operations, it might behoove the town to change that from a revolving fund back into the general fund operating budget. That's just the point. I think as we talk more and more, as you had mentioned, there's things that I think that we can explore and maybe different ways of doing things and be creative about this. But I think to Al's point, if we can meet somewhere in the middle, I'm not saying have the schools go back and cut another $80,000, but maybe have them relook at, tightening up a program, maybe, so on and so forth. But I'm in agreement with, and I'm not the first person that's going to say let's use free cash. But I like the point that we're weaning off of it and not increasing it. I think that's what the goal is, and what's been the goal with this 5-year plan that was put forth.
Right. Thanks, Gary.
Yeah.
So I think those are good points, I think, to talk about in a budget strategy meeting after town meeting, and as things go through. I'm not sure those answers can necessarily get taken care of quickly, but I think Duncan, I wanted to read, so Duncan is not able to speak. So he said, sorry, I can't speak. You all know my position. How do we not fund our school? So that was his comment at a little bit ago. And then he just asked, is anyone going to ask about the multiple lawn mowing contracts we have in town? How many? I don't think that's a conversation for now, but
one of my favorite subjects.
Yeah.
Lawn mowing.
The lawn mowing is always a very interesting point, but just really trying to keep us focused back here to our conversation where, the budget's already been approved. We've already had a tremendous budget meeting with the school back in February. And while any question's a good question, we're kind of at the point now of, that's that last 80,000. And, Al, you've got your hand up. Sorry, I missed that. Go ahead.
That's quite all right. And I'm teeing off on what Hugh and Cindy was saying earlier. Whether it is my suggestion of maybe going halfway or all the way or whatever, I think we should consider making the recommendation conditional on the school committee's support or support of that, the fact that they won't go any further than that number. So if Evan, if you go back to the school committee and they say, well, no, we want to go for more and more. No. If you say, yep, we're going to, we're on board with the finance committee to do this, then we will lever our support, whatever that number happens to be. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, thank you. Al. I would certainly be willing to have that conversation with the committee.
Okay.
I know we're on a condensed timeline, given town meeting is in, I think it's 2 weeks today.
Right. 2 weeks today.
Do you
And
have, do you have a meeting between now and town meeting?
I believe we're calling one before town meeting.
We are as well.
I'm hoping that we're meeting next week. That's my hope. And that we can bring this up as part of discussion. But I certainly want to continue the partnership and working together on this budget. So, no one is surprised going into town meeting.
Right.
On the recommendation.
Right.
Yeah.
Karen, Christopher has this.
Al, I think you've got someone talking in the background that's
I do, but anyway, sorry.
That's all right. You might want to mute.
So, I will say, I think it's somewhat inappropriate to ask for a commitment from the school committee prior to town meeting. I also think it's worth noting here that it's not the school committee's purview so much to fight on the floor of town meeting or anything like that. And I think that might be a little bit of a misconception here. I will say, just logistically speaking, the next meeting will be almost solely for the interviewing and recommendation of the next superintendent. So I just, I understand the sentiment here, but I think to ask for a commitment from the school department, or rather from the school committee on that, the committee could make a commitment, but it really has nothing to do with what could happen on the floor of town meeting.
Well, a commitment means something to some people. It may not mean something to others. If it is too difficult to give a commitment, then that raises questions about the sincerity.
Right. I think that it's just that the school committee would not be the group that would initiate. Anything can happen at town meeting. I totally get that. But for the school committee to initiate a request on town meeting floor for additional funding above and beyond what we as a committee or two committees here may agree upon, I think that I don't understand why you think it's inappropriate to ask for a commitment in advance. It's having an understanding that your committee is satisfied with what we have been able to recommend, and that things may go more smoothly at town meeting. I'm not suggesting that the school committee would go up there and, be aggressive in any way, but just the mere thought that there would be an additional amendment above and beyond perhaps what the finance committee has agreed upon and is recommending makes it more difficult at town meeting. It raises lots of questions about many things. And now the number could go to who knows where. and other departments may be sacrificed as a result. I don't know. I don't know if that's true. I mean, town meeting will vote with town meeting votes. But if we can have some type of harmony going into it, it reduces the chances of there being that type of the type of situation happening on town meeting floor. I know it can still happen, but it would be nice if this committee knew that the school committee would not be the initiator of such. That's all. I know other things could happen. And I don't know why you think it's not right for us to ask for that. You're asking for us to give a recommendation, which is what our job is, but your job is also to live within a budget.
Well, and I would just say that the school committee has already previously recommended a number that we are, well off of. I don't want this to get lost into a tit for tat here, because I just think that, we first of all, we also have two new school committee members. We have, we're planning on having a budget work session the day of the town meeting, actually. So, I think that realistically, to ask this right now, I just don't know. Frankly, I don't know how it would go over with the full committee at this point. And I think that
For the record, are you speaking as a member of the school committee or a member of the finance committee?
question, excuse me, I've got to finish my thought here. I think if there's really a question of not wanting to utilize the remaining free cash to plug this hole after all the work that's been done to try and bring it down from the original 385,000 or so. I think that was the gap. That's I find that concerning, but just one vote. So
I'm sorry, I don't understand what number you're talking about. That we're to use up the rest of free cash. You mean the 80,000 that's left, or?
that's what I was
Oh,
referring
okay.
to. Yes.
Okay.
Anything else, Christopher? No, okay, thank you. All right, so, Al?
No,
and
I'm
then
gonna
Zach.
defer to Zach if you
Okay,
don't
Zach,
mind.
go
Yes.
ahead.
I guess it's similar to what Hugh said, Chris. Like, I'm curious what your thought is, coming from the finance committee perspective. I understood your role as being on both committees would be more of a bridge between the two. And as Cindy said, this is a matter of the school committee aligning with the finance committee. So when we go to the town as a whole, we
Correct.
all are benefiting. You have the finance committee who is in charge of the budget of the town, not just the school. And then you have the school committee that are looking out for the better interest. I think this conversation started off under the idea that the $80,000 roughly that we have left could fill the deficit of what's left out of the 385, because the 301 was going to be taken away from the sub-separate classroom and the therapeutic classroom. So I'm interested on your take from a finance committee perspective on what you think is best for the town as a whole.
So I will answer that and say that from a finance committee perspective, I'm not thrilled with a whole lot of the way things have been allocated. And the school department is only one part of my concerns. Now, that being said, I don't want to lose sight of what we're actually talking about here. And I think that the question right now is how to utilize the resources that are available to fill a gap. And I don't want to turn this into like I said, tit for tat or back and forth there. I do think that asking for the school committee to redo their budget again, or to redo the approved budget ahead of town meeting on top of everything else that needs to get done at the next committee. Part of it's just a timing issue. So I mean, I'm not really, and if you're asking, you know, do I anticipate the school committee yelling and screaming at town meeting? No, I don't. So I just, at this point, like I said, I don't want to lose sight of where we are on trying to fit these parameters, but.
For the record, I never inferred yelling and screaming, okay? I was not inferring that anybody was going to be yelling and screaming. I am just talking about bringing up yet a different number yet again. I wasn't talking about yelling and screaming, and I take exception to the fact that you thought that there was going to be some shouting match. I'm talking about a disagreement on town floor, that's all.
I'm being facetious, obviously. I'm not.
Okay, then fine.
So let's-
Okay,
I don't wanna
accepted,
Bring it down a notch here.
accepted. Okay, no, accepted. Accepted.
I just,
My position is very easy.
um,
Voting Ronald Reagan, trust but verify.
Yeah.
so again,
So,
we
you know,
are, you know,
oh, go ahead, Christopher.
the plan was to have a budget work session before town meeting, just to go over all the, really, if nothing else, to bring the new committee members up to speed. So, you know, I can tell you, I'd have to, you know, think about putting that on the agenda, but also, again, if the finance committee is willing to make that recommendation, you know, if they want to, if you're saying you want to be contingent, you know, so be it, I guess. But I'm not really, I guess I'm not really understanding exactly what is being asked, other than if you're asking does the school committee intend to lead a charge on the floor of town meeting, and that I can pretty
All
much say.
I am asking is a vote saying they're not planning to do that, nothing more than that. A confirmation of the understanding. And if they're not willing to give that assurance, that raises some suspicions. Because there's no reason they shouldn't be willing to give the
It's not
assurance
like I can't
if
give
they're
you
on
that
board
assurance.
with it.
Well, I can't give you that assurance. I don't.
Not
Evan,
that you
the two of us can't, so.
With Evan, there's a meeting and the committee will have a vote.
And Chris was saying whether the finance committee is asking, you're a part of the finance committee, where this is a discussion.
Yes, I'm aware, but what I guess, you know, I did not intend to vote on any motion that would be made on this particular thing. But in any case, if you're asking for this, well, first of all, we don't have a motion or anything on the table. So is there,
Right.
what you're saying is you want a contingent motion? Is that?
No, all I'm saying is that when you gentlemen who are part of the school committee attend the next meeting, that's the proper venue for there to be a vote to support the present the situation we're talking about. That's all.
Okay, we can, Al, Evan, you had your hand up and then
Yes.
you sit down. Go ahead.
If I could just comment quickly on that, before we get too far off, I just wanted to bring it back and note that, again, the reason I'm presenting this tonight and going through the numbers is because I would be comfortable with that number. And I feel that and again, I can't speak for the committee, but what I'm saying is I feel that the committee would also be supportive of it, and there would not be an effort, at least, you know, endorsed by the committee that would change that.
Kevin, I'm not doubting anything you said, just asking for them actually to confirm that's the case.
Right.
Yeah.
That's all. I go back to trust but verify. I mean, that's a slogan, but at the same time, make sure that the ducks are in a row.
Great, thanks. I think we've got a few more hands. I just wanted to just jump in for a second because I've let everyone speak. So, you know, we all know using free cash in the operating budget's tricky. And, but we also have, we've had a year that we did have a good amount of free cash. And so we were able to fund all the articles as needed. And then there's $80,000 that didn't get allocated, in which would otherwise at this point roll into next year's free cash. So I would be more inclined, based on Evan's representation, that if 80,000 can kind of fill that gap to really make the budget solid, that we can all walk in together, I'm in favor of pushing another 80,000 to it. And again, last year's budget was 652,000 in free cash. If this year, if it was 80 as an example, it's 480. I think we're making some good strides. So, I would be in favor of that support.
Yeah.
And just so everyone knows, we don't have on the agenda tonight to make a motion to vote. So what we'd have to do is our half-hour meeting before town meeting is when we would make the reconsideration, and we'd vote then, because it's not on the agenda tonight to make a motion. Go ahead, Al.
I just want to reiterate, and I think Hugh, Cindy, and Zach have said it better than I ever could. I'm not opposed to taking the free cash and moving it into the bucket, but what I am opposed to is not having a consolidated agreement between the school committee and the finance committee. So, the floor fight, which Christopher and Evan, with all due respect, there has been a number of years where there has been a floor fight. We all know that. I don't even need to go into that, and dipping into other pockets and whatnot. So I just want us to go in together, if we agree on the 80,000 plus or minus whatever the number is, and say we all agree on this number and put it aside, take the win and move forward. And if we can't agree as a school committee and a finance committee on that, I cannot support this. If we can agree with it, I completely support it.
Good way to put it.
Mr. Lees, I share your goal, and going into town meeting without a floor fight, I don't want one either.
No,
That's certainly
wouldn't
not-
that be great?
So yes, I am hoping that I'm hopeful that we're working, and we have worked together in this budget process, and I'm grateful for the partnership. And I think that's a result of transparency on both sides, and coming together and having serious discussions about both the school budget, the town budget, and what can be done. So I share the goal of going in without having a floor. Yes, I should.
It's
Just to reassure
ugly,
the-
especially
reassure
about
the committee,
9:30
yeah.
at night,
But all we're asking for, you guys can't give the commitment tonight because you're not the full committee or the full quorum. The committee can, however, and that would simply tell us that all members of the committee feel the same way that you are. That's fine.
Right.
Shouldn't be that hard,
That's
I
it.
suspect.
All right, well, I think
Yeah.
I think where we leave it off is if you and Christopher somehow can have a discussion with the school committee, and then we would at 6:30 the night of town meeting we'll put on that agenda for reconsideration of the budget for you, and then we'll touch base with you on where we're at, and then we'll vote at that time. It sounds like, and I can't speak for everyone, and we're not voting today, but it sounds like more of us feel we'd be in favor of doing the 80,000 if we kind of walk in together. It sounds to me that's where people seem to be going. So, so I think that would be great. Whew.
Anything else on the agenda?
Appreciate that.
Well, thank you. Thank you for being here, Evan. I appreciate, again, it was as part as I was trying to put the presentation together to talk about the overall budget and where we're at, and, you know, and I think this was extremely helpful, and let's see what happens in 2 weeks. So, again, I'd be in support of it if we can all walk in together with it.
And thank you again for inviting me tonight, and certainly hope to continue the conversation over the next couple of weeks. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Take care.
And by the way, is that the end of the meeting?
No.
What did I say? Sounded like it. We need to-
It's just about, I have a draft of the presentation that I didn't send out, but I'll send it out to everyone afterwards. And then if anyone has any comments, you can get back. But I really wanted to keep the PowerPoint presentation at town meeting really brief. I feel like I keep hitting the repeat button without anything interesting and new to say. But you know, I think what I wanted to really in part communicate with the town residents that are sitting at town meeting is to really just explain the budget process of how it really starts in October, and how the town administrator meets with departments in October. The first draft of the budget becomes available in December. That's discussed at the select board. It's an agenda item for virtually every meeting. And so, you know, if there's discrepancies or ideas for the budget or concerns of department funding or priorities, you know, the residents should be encouraged to participate in this process as it unfolds over a 6-month period. So I just somehow wanted to just very briefly explain the budget process, and it's not just sitting at town meeting tonight. And, you know,
I would suggest that maybe you got this already in mind, to remind people that it's all an estimate. And we're working against, there are known knowns and unknown knowns and so forth and so on. But we don't know what the state's going to do until it does it. We can guess, but we don't know until the governor's budget, until the House and the Senate and other things like receipts by the town are still somewhat subject to, not really an audit, but to a firmer projection. And it's all based on the estimate of what we're going to have to spend. Usually pretty good, but not guaranteed.
But along with that, Karen, I think it's very, very important to include the fact that we had a lot more free cash this year than normal.
Good point. Good point.
I don't think you can say that loud enough, that it's an unusual year. Maybe it will happen again, but there are a lot of reasons, you know, and Jim highlighted many of the reasons why free cash is so much higher this year, and to not expect those same types of things to recur. So I think that that's really important, because they're going to see some large numbers coming from CIPC. They're going to see some large numbers being put away in, you know, in some of the stabilization accounts. And it's like, oh, well, we have all this money. It's very temporary, or it's very, I shouldn't even say temporary. It's very unusual. That's all.
Yeah,
and unpredictable.
You write out the money. I also point out the two easy things to point out. One is Stewart. The state has had to put a lot of money into the Stewart hospital situation. And also the illegals or migrants, as you choose to call them, has taken a lot of money out of the state. And the state has less money. It has less money, if it's so inclined, to pass down to us.
And may I just add, Karen, if you don't mind, CIPC has deferred some major for another year, some major expenses on equipment, for example, for one more year. So whatever we have in free cash or whatever it might be, that's coming down the pike. So it's not as though we're starting at zero on this year and moving forward.
Thank you. Those are all terrific points. So I'll make sure I'll incorporate some bullet points in the presentation, and then I'll send it out to everyone, and then individually you can get back to me individually if you have comments on it, and then I'll get them incorporated in. But thank you. Those are all terrific highlight points, and not to get into any detail, but really try to stay at that 10,000 foot view. So that's terrific.
Great. Thank you.
Because you look up and people are already, tuned out.
Oh my God. Yeah.
But this is important. And, and that's where I really want to reiterate those residents and voters and that are interested in the budget, that there's a whole 6-month process is going on prior to town meeting that is encouraging for people to get involved earlier on in this. Many of the questions that you all asked of Evan tonight are great questions, and not every question can get answered on the fly. There needs to be research, and so it's not an easy thing to discuss a $50 million budget in 5 minutes and get people to understand it. So thank you. I'll work on a draft and I'll send it out.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Al.
Karen, I would just like to say that I want to thank Evan and Christopher in particular, because the last, and I've been on the committee for 3 years, I think it is. It really doesn't matter, but I've been interested in longer than that. And it's always contentious between the school side and the town side, if just to look at that. But I just want to thank them for being thoughtful, which I have not seen in previous meetings. So I'll leave it at that, but I just want to thank them both for thinking through, and the committee that they represent, for understanding.
Thank you, Al. That's a great point.
Thank you, Al.
Thank you. All right. So I'll I think you all gave me some great highlights on the PowerPoints. I'll work on that. I've got a few days before I need to wrap that up. Okay. So next item on the agenda was just a standing item. If there's any committee or liaison updates that anybody would like to provide. I'm not looking at the screen, but I'm guessing that's going to be a no. Correct. Oops. Go ahead, Al.
Whoops. No, the only thing I would like to say is that I don't think that we have approved the minutes of the previous meetings yet. Now, maybe that's further down the list, but I just wanted to bring that up.
Thank you. Yes, that is the next item, is to approve the April 8th, 2025 minutes. We did approve 3 sets of minutes at our last meeting, so we did catch up. So the only minutes to approve is April 8th, 2025. And if Cindy's on mute. She's still on mute.
There we go. I will move that we approve the minutes of April 8th, 2025.
I'll second that.
For a second. Any discussion on those minutes? I hear none. All right, so I'll go for a roll call. Hugh?
Hugh Morton, aye.
Al?
Abstain. I was not at that meeting.
Okay. Christopher?
Christian Thrasher, aye.
Thank you. Gary?
Yes.
Thank you. Cindy?
Cindy Brown, aye.
Zach?
Zach LeBrew, aye.
Thank you. And we did, Duncan did have to leave at around 7:30 for the minutes, and Karen Rouse, aye on the minutes. Thank you. Okay, so I have no correspondence. So our next meeting is going to be at 6:30 before town meeting. I'll put on the agenda the reconsideration. The only topic we have is just catching up, but we will have a specific topic, which would be the reconsideration of the budget for what we discussed tonight. And then if we come at 6:30 and we enter by the middle part of the school, not the front door, and we meet, I think, in the cafeteria.
Mhm.
And then we'll get ourselves set for a town meeting.
Is there a full meal? I mean, if we're going into the cafeteria?
Doubt it.
I think there's some vending machines.
Yeah, vending machines, right.
Right.
I don't know if they still take money. I don't know
Yeah.
what, do the vending machines, Evan, do the vending machines take money? You're on mute.
I'm not sure actually,
He eats healthy.
but I can tell you we can provide meals, but that we need free cash to provide meals.
Right, right. Free lunches are going away, right? Free lunches are going away.
Right, still subject to annual appropriation. Yeah.
Good for you.
Good one, Evan. That was a good one.
So thank you again, truly. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Evan. All right, so no topics within 48 hours, and so I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
Make a
moved.
motion, yeah, second.
All right, I will do a roll call. Hugh,
Hugh Morton, aye.
Al,
Al Lee's eye.
Christopher,
Christopher Thrasher, aye.
thank you, Gary,
Yes.
Cindy,
Cindy Brown, aye, but Al, I just sent you a text message about a meeting tomorrow morning for the Historical Society. So that's
Yes.
my little,
Okay.
subscript.
all right, Zach,
Zach LeBrew, aye.
and Karen Rose, aye. Good night, everyone, and we'll see you.
Good
in
night.
person in
Thank
2
you.
weeks.